we have heard of artificial intelligence. I did not know that there was anything called artificial when it comes to human intelligence. But I do know now that the human intelligence is being challenged. And when I talk about artificial intelligence, they say, will artificial intelligence drive the economy of tomorrow? The question is, what do we do today? Do we just sit and watch while this seeps into our lifestyle, into our living rooms, into our homes, into our smartphones, into everything that we do? It's like creeping in, and at some stage it's going to take over all the things and the algorithms of life. Now, we are hearing statements being said across the globe, in fact, but it's all coming from Western technology. And they're saying things like this: artificial intelligence is definitely the future of the world. Google, Facebook, Apple, Microsoft, these are all the giants of technology which are moving so fast forward into this world of, in short, AI. The founder of Microsoft says this: it's very exciting. It's going to make us more efficient. The CEO of Apple says this: autonomy is the mother of all AI. Again, in his words, exciting. So this is the promise of tomorrow, to create a vastly more productive and efficient system of services for the betterment of our lives. What fascinates you about artificial intelligence? What does this create in you? Is it creating excitement like all these leaders in all these big tech companies? Is it creating a wonder in you, or what's happening? Is it fear? Is it confusion? Well, my guest today is Rui Sheng from Singapore. Now, Ray holds a degree, a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering with distinction, and with a specialization in mechatronics and robotics from the Nanyang Technological University. He has a great interest in a wide spectrum of topics, which of course include artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, robotics, mindfulness, and a battery of other topics that, keeps him right on at age. So without further ado, let's welcome Rui Sheng from Singapore, who comes to us live. Come in, Ray. Hi, Ray. I was just trying to get things sorted out. As usual, when it comes to technology, I want to welcome you. You're coming to us live from Singapore. Now, I tried to play this earlier, and I'm going to play it again. Listen.
Wouldn't it be wonderful if someday we got to the point where there were robots every place? They were running farms, they were running Apple, they were running Berkshire Hathaway, and all you had to do was one person could punch a button at the start of every morning, and all the goods and services that we're getting now would be turned out by robots.
Now, that was Warren Buffett.
Yeah.
And were you able to hear that?
Yes, I can hear it.
So this is the excitement that is going on in the Western world.
Yeah.
And definitely, even as a professional, even as a doctor, if I was not interested in it, I'd probably continue my medical work without even knowing about it until it comes to my doorstep. Or someone in the hospital says, hey, you got to follow this because this is the latest and new invention. So I want to thank you for joining us on HEARTtalk. Welcome. And I'm excited to learn from you. All of us want to learn the ABC of what is happening before us. And so let's start with your degree. Let's start with your training. What got you into robotics and mechatronics?
At that point of time, it just seemed quite interesting. So when I started university in 2016, and so in the second year, in 2017, the university asked if I wanted to go into this specialized course. So at the point of time, I didn't think too much. So I just felt it was quite interesting. So I went into it. Yeah.
And I know, why did you choose the engineering field, right?
Mm-hmm.
What made you choose it?
Basically, it's also kind of like based on my curiosity. So actually, engineering is a very broad term. the whole engineering field essentially is just to solve problems, any real life problems that people might have in their day-to-day life, or maybe even something more existential like the global warming crisis. So essentially, many things that we do in life currently, or we use like products, such as maybe your lift or your car, all these are feats of engineering. So I wanted to understand how these things came about and how they work. Yeah. So I think that's generally what sparked my interest in engineering.
Nice, because I remember that you were talking about when you were talking about engineering, you broke it up into arts, humanities, and science. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Now, I never knew that arts and science and humanities comes under the engineering world. Is that correct?
Rather than it comes under the engineering world, engineering itself is not something confined within just science. So in terms of, say, for example, the latest NASA spaceships or space station satellites, they draw inspiration a lot from nature. So for example, origami. So that's how they fold the satellites up and they're able to send them into space more efficiently, better, less energy, can send them further. So essentially, in terms of engineering, the only core is we need to solve problems. And there is no specific method that we need to use.
All right. So when it comes to the point of solving problems, that is an insight and inroad into artificial intelligence, because there will come a day, and we'll talk about that later. But I sought you out and I wanted to have a talk with you because I'm just about to complete writing this book on MindFLOW Ergonomics, the 7 creative zones of a mindful genius. And the word ergonomics is very applicable in my field of plastic surgery, and how we, use and conserve our energy. How do we design some of the instruments so that when we hold it for hours and we don't get tired? So from the engineering point of view, I'm very interested to hear your side of ergonomics, because that's where it all started, and what the root word of it. So give us an insight about ergonomics from your view in the engineering side of it.
Okay, so ergonomics, this word was actually coined by a Polish scientist, and it's kind of a joining of 2 words. So it has Greek origins, ergon and nomos. So ergon is basically work or labor, and nomos is natural laws. So for me, in terms of ergonomics, the role of this word in engineering typically tends towards design. So it plays a role in design by ensuring that the design of a product is suitable for use or human usage, or good for human usage. In the sense that more commonly you'll see these products like ergonomically designed mouse or ergonomically designed chairs. So things you use very often, things that might cause human harm if you use it incorrectly for a long period of time. So this essentially, ergonomics was popularized into engineering actually by the Japanese. So they made this term quite popular quite long ago actually. So since the 18th century, 1919, there's a journal that's published on this concept called ergonomics in engineering. Yeah, so for me, in terms of ergonomics, it will be more towards the design of a product.
How does that involve? Because when I write about MindFLOW Ergonomics, it's a design engineered system, an ecosystem, which I have come up with 7 creative zones, that all these zones are all interplaying, intersecting, interworking together. So at any one time, we can actually, instead of thinking intellectually, we can have a mind of a genius and then come to a problem-solving event in a matter of time, you see. So MindFLOW Ergonomics is basically, there's a big thing in the marketplace today for those who go to work or those who are working in the marketplace, Ray, and that is, one is the burning out of an individual, mental exhaustion, and the other side is productivity. That's all they are interested in. Because when you're talking about human workforce, how can I keep that human workforce within my company, at the same time increase my productivity without people dropping out? And I believe that mindful ergonomics is actually a step into the future when it comes to the workforce. So, in the terms of where we are moving into for discussion today, give us some background and history about artificial intelligence. How did this kind of start up? Because I know it's been in the market for a few years now, and it's going so fast that before I can even finish with you talking, something else is going to pop up in somewhere of the world. But tell us, what does AI do at its core?
Okay. At its core, the purpose or the motive of the researchers for AI is to essentially have a low-cost virtual assistant, personal virtual assistant for everyone. Something like your Siri right now, but better.
Carry on. Something like your Siri.
Yep, your Siri or Google.
Uh-huh.
Like you can tell your phone, hey Google, if you are using an Android phone, or if you are using an Apple phone, it'll be Siri. So Siri or Google is kind of your virtual assistant right now. So as the same thing is when you do a search online, you use Google search or something, Microsoft Bing. So essentially, AI, this thing is a concept that has been born for quite a long time already. If you've seen all the sci-fi movies, this is essentially their ideal. I mean, I wouldn't say it might, I'm not sure which one came first, but it's quite related. Then, okay, in terms of AI is artificial intelligence. So it's a very big thing. It's a very big field that encompasses a lot of, encompasses a lot of big other fields as well. So breaking down AI, so actually in terms of AI, there are three general classifications. So you start from ANI, artificial narrow intelligence, and then go to AGI, artificial general intelligence, and then ASI.
What is that? What is that? When in medicine we talk about the anatomy. When you're talking about any system, the anatomy of the face or the anatomy of an area or system. What is the anatomy of AI? I know it's I've got it here where your machines are artificially incorporated with human intelligence. Okay, so that's basically what it is. But it's a complex of algorithms and mathematical functions. Is that correct?
Yes, essentially that's the basis of it.
So so a human being has to put it into the machine. Is that correct?
For now, yes. But
sorry.
Okay, so under AI, there is this big thing called machine learning. So essentially, most of the research started there, and it's still there. So machine learning is what you call. So basically, you're helping the machine to learn. That's why it's called machine learning. So it will be a computer. You input some kind of models into it, and then you feed it some data, and you get it to learn. So this is the first step. So under machine learning, you actually split the learning in two types. So
okay,
there is supervised.
Sorry, I'm going to stop you because these are ABC baby steps.
Yeah.
All right. 20, 30 years ago, we would have been a different thing that we are learning. Right now, we are learning this, and now, so you're going to put some information, which is human content, into a machine. Is that correct? Am I right?
Yes, in the form of data.
In the form of data. Now, the person who puts the information in, who's that person? What kind of background does the person have?
Typically, he will be a data engineer.
All right. So basically the data is provided and put it in, right? Is that correct?
So the data engineer has to do a few things, because if you just randomly put in data, it will be a very bad thing. You'll get very bad results. So the data engineer, essentially, he has to kind of like clean the data. So step one, he has to clean it. Then step two, he has to kind of analyze and organize the data, like properly segment it or decide what is good, what is necessary for the model.
Okay. So once he's put in the data, can anything go wrong by putting in the wrong data?
Yes, definitely. So there is a lot of in recent times there has been a lot of research on AI ethics. So there are a few models out there that people have researched, and they found that the model is biased. It contains human bias because the data fed to it contains human bias.
Absolutely. All right. So how do you rectify that? What do they do?
Essentially, that's the important role of the data engineer. So he has to clean the data. So this is under the cleaning of the data. And then, so basically the major steps would be like cleaning and organizing, and then some post-processing, like you can enhance the image or things like that.
Mm-hmm. All right. And then you have generalized learning, reasoning, and problem solving. That's the main core of the AI work, right?
Yes. So I mean, AI is essentially, they call it artificial intelligence, right? It's supposed to work the same way as a normal human. That's the goal, kind of the end goal. Yeah.
Uh-huh. So where do we progress from there? So machine learning is a technique to achieve AI.
Yes, you can put it that way.
All right. And go ahead. So where do we go from there? So the machine now has got the data processed into it now.
Mm-hmm.
And then what's the next step with that machine? So now you call that machine artificial. You call that a robot, right?
You can call it a lot of things. Typically, people call it, okay, so essentially what you call AI now is still machine learning. That is why it's under ANI, artificial narrow intelligence.
Right.
So actually, personally, for me, the actual definition for artificial intelligence starts at the second step, AGI, so artificial general intelligence.
Right.
So when you reach this step, right, essentially you have created a virtual human being. So this is your virtual personal assistant. You can ask it anything, and it will give you a good answer based on what it knows. Or you can ask it to do something, maybe help you help you do some banking, or maybe possibly power or operate your smart home. Yeah.
So is it like what we think a robot as a robot is?
Slightly different. So what you think as a robot is something physical, right?
Uh-huh.
So AI, you can think of it as the brains of the robot. So it doesn't have to have a physical form, but it can.
Wow. Sounds like come on, go ahead. They're all getting excited, so I want to hear more from you. So let it
Okay.
go, because you're talking to someone who is a medical man, So if you want to tell me, don't give me incentives, just let me go so that I know what on earth is happening. If you just said it's going to help me in my banking, right?
Yeah.
Does it help me in my banking, or can it also help me rob the bank?
I think that comes under the ethics part of it. So essentially, there is a big discussion going on for AI ethics. Essentially, because this technology has the power to completely change the world. It is something like the Industrial Revolution. So some people, they think of it as the next Industrial Revolution. So AI,
how does it change the world? In what way?
the thing about AI is this technology can be integrated into every single thing that we currently have. So actually, so your since it started with the internet, right? Then the dot-com era, and then that's what we call Web 1. And then moving on into like 2010, it started Web 2, what we call the social media era. So Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, this became very popular. Then moving on now, what we call Web 3. So typically people think of this as cryptocurrency. But actually, cryptocurrency, AI in general will be big. It's a bigger area than cryptocurrency. So you can put cryptocurrency inside AI, but you cannot put AI inside crypto. It's not the right way to do it. Yeah. So AI is a general encompassing thing. And it's like upgrading a computer. So you upgrade the whole firmware. So everything you do with your computer right now, in the future, has AI in it, ideally. So this is the kind of one of the goals for the researchers. So I talked about having a personal virtual assistant. So this is one implementation of such thing. So basically, you can be at your home. Let's say you use your computer or your smartwatch, or maybe in the future you already have smart glasses. So you want to do some day-to-day tasks, maybe withdraw some money from your bank. It's possible that you are using an e-wallet. So say I can tell, hey Siri, please withdraw $500 from my bank account to my e-wallet, and I can choose whichever e-wallet. Let's say I use Grab. I want to use my Grab Pay, and please use my Grab Pay to pay for this food I'm buying or whatsoever. So ideally this should happen all seamlessly. So you just go to the chicken rice store and say, I want a plate of chicken rice. Everything will be done in the back end seamlessly.
So you're talking to let's say, like you just said, right? I mean, I'm in my home and I'm talking to what? My phone?
You can be talking to something. So that something can be Google, or it can be your phone, your watch, your computer, your robot assistant dog.
Okay, so I'm beginning to see, because it's like, yeah, it's just going to cut down you having to go all the way to the bank.
Yeah.
But that's beyond the point, because there's always a security problem there, isn't it? Even right now, when we're going online and then people can hack.
Yeah. So the security problem, this thing, actually, if you are able to integrate AI as a kind of it's like how you could integrate the cloud, right? Cloud computing. It gets more and more secure, because so right now you have many end users, right? So how many security loopholes are there? Every end user is a security loophole. But if you have only one hole, which is the AI, then it gets much easier to secure this hole, right? Of course, it's a higher risk, but it's concentrated. And you are able to concentrate all your resources onto securing this hole, this single security loophole.
Right. So, okay, so you talked about the narrow intelligence, then you talked about general intelligence. The thing that I'm concerned about, when you talk about the human brain, a lot of it is being processed in our thinking, in everything that we do. And we're talking about, for example, and just to give you an example, we have what's called the reticular activating system, and where things are being, consciously assessed and programmed. When I think of RAS, I think of the AI and its ability to reason, to adapt, and to give solutions. RAS, you see. I cannot imagine that we're reaching a stage in life where we've got some robot that's coming to reason out with anything else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But my concern, my blind spot is that all of this is being done in the Western world and being fed in, like what you mentioned, Google, Facebook, Apple. Are we going to come under this whole umbrella of being, within inverted commas, subjected to all the whatever is being done in the West? And then it means the monopoly is done by all these big tech giants.
No, actually, I listed those examples is because they are more well known. But actually, in China, etc., they have their own version of ChatGPT. So recently, actually, a couple of them. So the most famous one.
Sorry, you said ChatGPT. What's that?
Okay, so ChatGPT is a chatbot program, so-called powered by AI, that is developed by this company called OpenAI. So it has recently exploded because they released their ChatGPT bots for free, essentially as a beta test. Yeah. So ChatGPT, this thing, it is basically an AI-powered chatbot. So it lies under ANI, artificial narrow intelligence. So basically, it's just like chatting to a virtual human. You ask it a question, it will tell you an answer. You can continue the conversation, on and on. Yeah. So it's similar to a Google search engine, just that it's easier to use for a layperson. Because For Google search to be kind of the most accurate or effective, you have to use certain keywords. And these keywords, you might not know these keywords. That's why you are doing a Google search, you don't know about this topic. So you don't know what you don't know, and you can't search what you don't know. That's the biggest problem with, or biggest limitation currently with Google search.
Right.
So ChatGPT helps to resolve this problem because you're like chatting to an expert per se. So you can ask it basic questions and then you'll get better and better answers. And you'll at the same time you're improving yourself. So you can ask it better questions. So you continue, it's a virtual cycle.
So there's somebody intelligent who has put all that information in there, right?
ChatGPT basically is called Chat and GPT. So GPT is the name of their technology. GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. So this is a technique. It's like a algorithm under the machine learning umbrella. Okay, so basically, as I said, for machine learning, when you create a model or under learning, there is two large categories: supervised learning and unsupervised learning. Supervised learning basically means that you give it a data train. So basically, I have to feed it some baseline data. Like for example, what does red color looks like? I have to feed it images of red, the shades of red, so it knows that this color is called red. So for unsupervised, it's just the opposite. There is no data fed to it, so the model learns by itself. So for ChatGPT, they are using this. Their algorithm is at this version of GPT-3, version 3. So it's basically what you call a large language model, LLM. So it's the advancement of NLP, which is natural language processing. So that was the predecessor, and then now they have LLM. So basically, what OpenAI has managed to resolve or innovate is they created this new model using what we call reinforcement learning from human feedback, RLHF. So this is what they publish in their papers.
Right.
So, yeah. Okay.
Go ahead.
Okay. So basically, they train an initial model. So with supervised learning. So basically, they provided it some baseline data, and then they did some fine tuning. So that's the supervised learning part. So now you have a base model. Then they moved on to unsupervised learning. And unsupervised learning, they use reinforcement learning. So they have this new technique called RLHF. So what it means is basically reinforcement learning from human feedback. But this human feedback is actually provided by what they call human AI trainers. So it's kind of like using a machine to train a machine that emulates a human to train a machine. So they gave this AI trainers some training first, and then this AI trainers went on to train the new model, which is called ChatGPT. So it's like, in human terms, it's like, you are a student and then you learn from your teacher. And then when you grew up, you became a teacher and then you continue teaching the successive generations, So they have this, in general, they use this technique called PPO, Proximal Policy Optimization. Simply just means that it takes like related objects or images or data, sort of like neighbors, what they call it, and then group them together as a classification. So they do this iteratively for all the whole data set. And then they fine tune it, and this is what you have as ChatGPT. So if you notice, when you try to use ChatGPT, when you ask it very basic questions, it will give you a very good answer. But generally, as you start going more in depth, it will write nonsensical answers that sound plausible. This is because the model can only answer you based on its current understanding. And so they also listed these limitations very clearly on their website. So they said that during reinforcement learning training, there is no source of truth. So for a human, for example, you learn a new, like for example, you, Dr. Charles, you learn something new. And this knowledge has to hit a certain threshold of accuracy before you take it as truth. And this becomes part of your new knowledge base now. But then for the AI model, during the reinforcement learning, there is no such thing as a source of truth. So it has no baseline. So this limitation causes the model to be more cautious. And so there might be some questions whereby it has the knowledge to answer, but it doesn't feel it has sufficient knowledge. So it will not answer that question. Also, based on because their ChatGPT is kind of a hybrid of two models. So the supervised learning part, it brings in some limitations as well. So as I said, human bias in the data. So this is inevitable.
Wow.
So that's the main limitations of the current ChatGPT model. So actually, everybody knows the news. Microsoft Bing is going to implement the OpenAI technology into their search engine. But what they are implementing is actually GPT-4, a newer model of this ChatGPT. So actually, we are not very sure of how it performs, but it's supposed to be better. So the difference is GPT-4 purely uses RLHF, purely unsupervised learning. So there is no human bias in this model.
Right. So how do we see this? But how do we see this seeping into our lifestyle? I mean, where is this thing going to go? Because the way I'm asking you these questions because of what I'm reading and what's coming out on the YouTubes and what's the latest, and you find that they're all popping up with all these new technologies, new terms. I mean, can life just go on without having to keep on, being fed by all this new stuff around?
Okay, essentially, within the next 10 years, your life isn't going to change very much. So AI is still in a nascent stage. So there's actually a very good book wrote by one of the leading AI scientists in China. So his name is Kai-Fu Lee. He wrote this book, he co-authored this book called AI 2041. With this, so Kai-Fu Lee is the scientist, he's the researcher. He's one of the top researchers for AI in the world. And he co-authored this book with a novelist. So this guy, he writes fictional novels, science fiction novels. So this guy is called Chen Qiufan. He's a Chinese author. So basically, they collaborated to write this book to kind of give a basic understanding of what's going on in AI for the whole world. So it's named AI 2041 is because the year 2041 is the general consensus currently amongst the AI community of when will we reach AGI, so artificial general intelligence. So the
artificial general intelligence, I've heard of that phrase called point of singulation, where it's about the same, where robots are as smart as humans. Are we on the same? Is that the same page, right?
Yes, that is the base. That is the milestone. So when you are able to create a software system that is as smart as a human being. So you can converse with this thing, and you will not know that it's an AI or a software system.
Wow.
So as smart as the general population, one person. So I talked about the classification of AI, right? There's another classification above AGI. There is what we call ASI. So ASI stands for Artificial Super Intelligence. Artificial super intelligence is where you get those dystopian scenarios. Basically, this AI system is smarter than the collective human population.
Wow.
And I don't know if you'll ever get there. So based on our current technology, right? It's impossible to get there no matter how long. But so the AI community is kind of optimistic that once we get to AGI, the progress can be sped up using AGI as a tool to help you further improve this technology.
Yeah, when you think of all this, sometimes you wonder whether this is all head knowledge and where there's emotions and where there's the heart coming when it comes to life and making decisions in life. Because at the end of the day, we are still emotional human beings. And our emotions very often determine our condition. I believe very much that the human experience is determined by the human condition. And if AI is on the spot, does that mean there'll be less people doing less convicts in the world, less murders, less all the criminal stuff that we see because people are becoming more intelligent? Or does it make everybody more worried and fear and frustrating, and it's only for a selected few? So I think that there's a lot more mileage that is required, a lot more learning to go on, but it's there. The point is that it is there, and how do we, as people, working in the marketplace, how do we navigate through it? How do we get ready to receive this? You see, intelligently, and it starts with children in the school. How are they going to be fed with knowledge? You are a robotics tutor. Do you think that there will become an AI tutor at some stage?
Okay. So actually, I taught robotics to preschool and primary school children. So basically ages 6 to 12, kind of. Yeah. So the main, I don't think there'll be an AI tutor for these ages, but the main goal from as a robotics tutor when we teach these children, it's actually more like STEM education. So science, technology, this kind of STEM education. So it's the
What is
basic.
EM?
Okay, STEM stands, actually there's a new acronym which they include A, so they call it STEAM education. So S stands for science, T stands for technology, E is engineering, A is arts, and M is mathematics.
Right. Okay.
So basically our education philosophy follows this. And what we teach the students in terms of content, it's more like basic coding. And because coding is basically the language of what you use for robotics. It's like math in the world of science. Math is the language that science uses.
Right.
So coding is a language that robotics uses, and subsequently AI. So robotics, machine learning, AI, the language is coding. So typically we teach them Python first, because Python is very close to natural language. So that's why it's very popular. And it's easier to pick up and understand. So the main focus is not content, but teaching the methodology or the mindset, logical process thinking to the kid.
Wow. I mean, what, half a decade ago, 50 years, 60 years ago, we didn't hear all this when I went to school. And now we're moving into Python language, and, the things are moving so fast. And I never knew that there were so many aspects of learning. But we talk about machine learning, we talk about all sorts of learning. Now we're coming to deep learning.
Yep.
And is that the higher spectrum?
No. So deep learning is basically a more specialized area of machine learning. Deep learning, you typically will talk about neural networks. So neural networks is just the modeling of basically they try to model a human brain. How does a human brain work? So as you would know, so we don't even understand how the human brain really works. So of course the model itself is not that accurate, but it's the best we can do so far. So when you talk about neural networks, Generally, the most common thing you will hear is convolutional neural networks, CNN for short. So these neural networks, they are good for, I mean, in terms of like different algorithms, you kind of split them into a classification, category first. So there is categorical classification and numerical classification. And beyond that, there's further, but I wouldn't touch that. So essentially, there are different algorithms that are better for like images, some are better for numerical output. And CNN, this convolutional neural network, is actually quite good for images.
Right.
So typically, this is what you use to train for computer vision. So computer vision is basically what the computer sees, you know. So in, let's say, something like you drive a Tesla. Your Tesla has all these sensors and cameras and LiDARs. So, and all this form a system, what you call computer vision, within the car, for the car. So how the car sees the world is how then they can implement the self-driving feature. So basically, the cameras and LiDARs and ultrasound sensors, they kind of give you certain input data from the real world as you're driving a car. And then all this gets translated into some sort of image or some sort of data for the car computer to process, understand, and decide on what they should do. So the current limitations of this self-driving cars, right, is actually in general data. So that's why to facilitate this, right, you know, they talk about 5G, how we need to have 5G to get self-driving cars. It's because 4G essentially, the bandwidth and the speed is not sufficient. You will have a certain latency that is not acceptable when you are in this kind of high risk situation like driving. And another thing is we need this architecture per se, like the ecosystem, to do or get more accurate processing, image processing or data processing. So you'll hear about incidents of the Tesla self-driving crashing into something.
Right.
It's because the computer can't see it, you know? They couldn't see this obstacle or this something. That's why I made a wrong decision.
Wow. That means those, you see, at some stage, what I'm hearing is that there will be limitations as they find their way through, isn't it? Because
definitely everything has limitations.
Everything
like
has
AI
limitations.
is not a cure-all thing, you know, like if we have AI, the world will be so much better. It's not like that.
Well, that's why I started off with Warren Buffett saying that you just have to press a button and it's going to do all the services and production is going to be better. But I think at the end of the line, mankind will still be prime. And, you know, and you don't have to press a button and some rocket from somewhere lands in another country. You know, it's just something so new that when I keep talking to neuroscientists and I tell them, where's the mind? Or I ask them, where's the mind? And some of them can't answer, even though they've got all the knowledge of the brain in their mind, but they can't put the mind in. You see, they still do not know. It's still out there. The jury is still out there. Is it the mind in the brain in the mind? You know, when we talk about mind, body, soul, spirit, and then I ask them, where's the soul? And it's still, the jury is out there. So at the end of the day, when all these tech leaders say that it's exciting, it's wonderful, what does a man on the street have to know? He still has to go and get his food on the table for the family. He still has to work, you know, and these are bread and butter issues that only time will tell. Because what they say is that it's going to generate millions and millions of jobs, but we don't know how, and I don't know, I can't see it. But anyway, so coming back to MindFlow, and let's just close this. Coming back to MindFlow Ergonomics, I think the whole question of MindFlow is that it shows that there's an open AI system where your mind can actually flow instead of having a mindset. And ergonomics is how do we make work life more efficient? How do we optimize our life for peak performance so that we thrive with excellence. And I love the word thrive, because thrive is your GDP and my GDP, like how you measure the success of a nation with GDP, right? Gross domestic product. The GDP of thriving is G is for growth, D is for development, and P is for prosperity. So if we keep on with this growth mindset and be open to technology and its advances, I think we can say, and we can both say, it's exciting times. Even though there are blind spots here and there, but the more light we shine in a world that's full of darkness, the better everyone can see.
Yeah.
And so on that note, any final words that you would like to say regarding ergonomics and AI and chat GDP and all those things that you've been speaking about?
I think in general, if you are a lay person who is not involved in the industry, right, I don't think you should be too worried about your job getting taken over or things like that. As I said, like, it is many years away, decades at least, for AGI, and you should kind of see AI as a tool for you, because that is what it is. It is a tool to help you. AI was always developed as a tool to help humans, not to replace humans. So if you look at automation, it's also a tool to replace mundane work for humans. So you can do something more exciting, something that you are more passionate about. Yeah, I think that'll be it.
All right. So I think on that note, once again, Rui Sheng, thank you very much for giving us a slight dosage of what this whole new world is going to be. And even though it is 10 years, 15 or 20 years ahead, the point is that it is there. It's coming.
Yeah.
And so, you are going to live in a generation. In 20 years' time, you'll be in the 50s, and you'll be able to see the progress. And I've always talked about this scientist, the father of chemistry, who is Robert Boyle. And he said he wrote this 20-point wish list, and I've said it before. The top two, number one, number two, is the prolongation of life and the recovery of youth. And if AI is the next generation coming in with another tool to feed into these 20-point wish lists, I think science is on the spin of winning. And it's an exciting time to be alive. So on that note, I want to thank you and for joining us on HEARTtalk, Ray. I hope that the next conversation we'll have will be a little bit more better, deeper, wider, and more exciting again. And so from all of us here at HEARTtalk, thank you for joining us, and we'll talk again.